Dark and Darker has been blowing up the last few months, and even though it's still in development, I think the game is just so refreshing. Indie games, they just have so much more character than the garbage, soulless AAA titles we've been getting the last few years. And I think part of what makes Dark and Darker so fun is it can be really punishing, and you can expect to die a lot, especially your first few times playing. I'm Strider the Champ, and in today's video, I'm going to give you guys some beginner tips to increase your survival rate and understanding of the game. If you enjoy the video, be sure to hit the sub button for more Dark and Darker content. Now, if you learn one thing from me today, it's that a successful raid starts before you set foot in the dungeon at the Merchants tab. Dark and Darker is a hard game to survive. Even if you win a big PvP fight, you're most likely going to take damage, which can often lead to dying to a mosquito or a spike trap or just some other randomness. This is why we head over to the Alchemist and prepare for our raid by purchasing some potions. Healing potions are vital to sustain your health and ensure that you're entering engagements with your HP levels as close to max as possible. Even if you have a cleric or some form of healing, we want to plan for the worst because surviving a raid will more than pay for the potions, and if you don't use them, just bring them back in. Now, the most important potion I believe to bring is the blue one, Protection. This negates damage from enemy attacks, and I pretty much always bring 3 in with me. They're super cheap, and these should always be used right before engaging in PvP. Negating enemy damage can be the difference between surviving a raid or heading back to the lobby empty-handed. While staying at our pre-raid screen, let's talk quickly about gear. Hoarding gear to run for later will probably lead to less successful raids. And many times, new players, they hoard gear that's honestly just not very good. You're better off running the best gear you can so that you survive more raids. Not all gear is created equally, as your weapon is without a doubt the most important piece of equipment. Running a good weapon simply it allows you to kill people and monsters faster, kind of self-explanatory, but I would also value having boots equipped, as you'll notice all classes are just slow as hell, and the extra movement speed is very important. I'd also put priority on chest piece and helmet, as these are the areas you'll most often be hit. Now, there is a decision to be made when deciding to wear junk gear, as sometimes the damage mitigation, it doesn't make up for the loss of movement speed, and movement is where you have the best chance to outplay your enemies. Speaking of movement, hit the X key to put your weapon away and run faster. This is essential to catch faster classes like rangers or rogues. Movement is also your primary way of avoiding attacks from monsters and other players. I think most players will enter their first raid in the dungeon, attempt to trade blows with a skeleton, and just immediately die. I know I did. Combat, it can be a bit weird in Dark and Darker, and movement is generally more reliable than blocks. Most of the mobs found in the dungeon, they can be engaged by hitting them once or twice, then using backwards movement to make them miss, rinse, and repeat. On slower classes, after you hit an enemy, you can turn 180 degrees and run back a few steps to avoid the shot before once again smacking your enemy. Now, when you get some real game knowledge, you'll notice that weapons have attack patterns, and if you memorize the attack patterns, you know which way to move and dodge in PvP engagements, as they always attack in the same 3 sequence. If you hit the 3 key on your keyboard, you have utility items. While these vary per class, I want to point out the torch. The torch is essential in surviving the dungeon. For starters, it obviously provides light, which you could use to see and avoid traps, or even find hidden treasure and chests. A torch can even be thrown by using the right-click button, which provides incredible utility, as you can light an area with a thrown torch and then continue your engagement. Bonus tip on torches, and I've yet to see anyone else figure this out, but you can use them to activate weight-based traps as a solo player by throwing one onto the button. Now, my last piece of advice is to make sure to check your active and passive skills and abilities. These range from essential to pick to near useless, and sometimes the default options are the near useless ones. So, like, I have a bunch of ranger guides up, and it's essential to take rapid shot, which you have to swap to manually. So be sure to check out your builds and passives. Remember, every 5 levels you get to add another passive, which is a legit power spike to your character, and leveling is actually pretty fast in Dark and Darker, so it's a pretty quick sprint to 20. Alright guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the playtest and wish you fortune and glory in the dungeon. Champ out.